If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads. Sackheads.
Radio.
Sackheads. Sackheads.
Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Hey, welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show on this 9th of July, 2014. I am your co-host, Sackhead Sean, off to the left side of the studio if you're looking at it from behind us. Off to the right side of the studio if you're looking at us in front of us will be me, Sackhead Sean. Also in the studio, I guess, is Clint is somewhere. I don't know where he is. He said he's here, but who knows?
Listen.
Oh, hey,
so
buddy.
this is the first time we're patched in live while I'm on an aircraft.
I can't even hear the hiss behind you, so that's pretty good.
The hiss, like the G.I. Joe battle tank hiss?
Yes. Well, you know how you normally hear that?
How's that for bringing it back retro?
Dude, that was bringing it back awesome style.
What can I say? I'm really good at audio.
Thanks, Sacco. Sacco really made that happen tonight in the studio. He actually, he's having a good night already.
And he sounds really weird. Okay, so Sacco ran a line from the aircraft. He figured out the distance that I would be flying. And he ran that size line.
It's like an anti-tank line.
To the aircraft. And so it's consistently being attached at altitude and length of the flight. And how he even engineered it, I have no idea.
Well, the only weird part I saw about it is he has everything in 75-foot cord. So
right.
all he's doing is just plugging things together nonstop. I just
right. And how does it stay? I don't even know how it's not getting tangled on any turbines. It's not.
He's the engineer, not me. I'm just glad.
I know.
I'm just glad he was able to make it happen.
We have to be careful because the military may try and recruit him for his awesomeness.
I'm just going to give them the picture of what you just described. You know how you're a kid, you have 2 foam cups, and you put a string in the cup?
That's actually a more accurate depiction of the situation tonight.
Listen, but that's what I mean. That's superior ingenuity, right? Like, I couldn't make that happen. I don't even know what you're talking about right now. I'm trying to draw a picture with stick figures.
Good point. Thank you, everyone that's joining us tonight here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you to the amazing Ken McClinton, who's kicked it over to us at the end of his show, doing an awesome job. He's in Vegas this week, that lucky son of... I mean, we're really happy for him.
I wondered why he was trying to get off the air so quick.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Right? Because usually he's kind of dragging, and he's really good about his wrap-ups, and he's everything is...
Well,
but tonight was so quick.
Normally he goes to like 7:59 and a half, and
right.
We're sitting here, we're like, ooh, Ken's going to go over, and then like the consummate professional that he is, boom, right on the nose, he closes it out.
And kicks it over.
But it's right at 8 o'clock, our time, right on the nose of it. Tonight
he ended at 7:15,
which was the weirdest.
Which was
thing,
weird.
Right?
The rest was all replay.
Most people don't know the last 45 minutes were just an audio recording.
Right.
But he caught all of us off guard, even Sacco. Sacco was sitting there like just whistling, waiting for that one time, and then all of a sudden, boom, here we were. We really appreciate you guys. If you're not in the chat roll, go ahead and log into shrmedia.com. Click on chat roll to jump in. So much to talk about tonight, and we're going to jump into the topics in a few minutes here. How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm aggravated.
You're aggravated. Don't go getting into any topics right
now. I know,
now.
and that's why I'm aggravated. So not because you won't let me get into topics. I mean, that's one of the reasons you keep me from doing that. But the news has really pissed me off this week.
They have been doing so well at reporting everything. Right? No?
Yeah, no, they've just been nailing it. I'll tell you what. Thank God, and I mean this. Thank God we are actually the mainstream media now. I full applaud to Ken for coining that phrase and making that so, because we're going to cover what they won't on a lot of these subjects. Today I heard about two things. Obama was in Denver, and he played pool. Somebody offered him a joint, and a guy in a horse mask shook his hand.
Okay, so hang on a second. Did he win, or did he shark it? Number 2, did he smoke it?
No.
And did he inhale?
I think he said not now.
Or did he save it and bake brownies with it? And what was the third thing he did?
The guy in the horse mask shaking his hand.
Is that going to end up on the chive?
I hope so. Which, I give the kid that did it a lot of credit, because that takes a lot of moxie to like, hey, the president's coming? Quick, get me a horse mask.
Right.
You know what I mean? But still, the mainstream media themselves, I don't need to see it time and again with those laughing heads just yucking it up. There's some people that were actually concerned on Twitter last night about the president's safety, which that to me was a legitimate. I mean, I know it's just a horse mask. You're not allowed to protest legally near the president, so I figured horse masks were illegal, but apparently not. So I can understand that too. There's the security issue, but I'm telling you right now, and I said it last night in Twitter, if you think for a second there wasn't 9 rifles trained on that guy, that entire exchange, you're crazy.
Why only 9?
Crossfire.
Yeah, but if they were elevated.
That's true. I don't know. Maybe the other guy was on break.
Oh, that's possible.
Guy with the horse mask. Yeah, I got to take a leak.
Right, it's unconfirmed.
You're doing Overwatch for the president. Yeah, I had a lot of water on the plane.
Right.
But that's all you heard on the
Use
news.
a Gatorade bottle.
It's a Gatorade. Come on, roll it over like a normal person. It's back to my drinking
Yeah, I
days.
forgot my Gatorade bottle. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. All I have is this little Powerade thing. I don't know. But with everything that's happened...
It's Capri Sun. Use the straw as a catheter. Guess I could do that.
It's like a stadium buddy.
You know what? Hang on a second. We just created a product.
Oh, no.
What? A portable catheter
Already out there.
for, like, Overwatch missions.
I think it's already out there.
It's 2025, a new year, and the perfect time to turn your business dreams into reality. Maybe you've been tossing around a great idea, but haven't acted yet. Well, Shopify is how you're going to make it happen. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and make your first sale. With thousands of customizable templates, you don't need coding or design skills. Just drag, drop, and go. Plus, Shopify's social media tools help you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts so you can sell everywhere your customers scroll. Managing your business is easy too. From shipping to taxes to payments, Shopify handles the details on a single dashboard, letting you focus on what really matters: growing your business. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
I think it's already out there. It's called the Stadium Buddy. If you research Stadium Buddy.
Really?
Now, it wasn't intended for that purpose, but it would absolutely fill that void.
I see what you did there with the fill that void.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well done.
So, excellent
job with the horse mask.
Excellent job with the horse mask. Thank God those media gurus were all over it. I mean,
well, what else would they cover? I mean, really, what else would they cover? What are they going to cover?
Well,
4th of July fireworks, for example, in Chicago?
Right.
Or the fireworks in the Middle East? or fireworks along the border. I mean, what else are you going to cover? There was nothing else that happened this week.
I don't know. Nobody was suspended for stupid reasons.
Right.
Or,
right.
There wasn't new emails dug up or...
Yeah, so I don't understand what you're getting all uppity about.
You're right. I should not be getting uppity. I apologize. It was hot this week. Now, for those people who don't know, I'm in Sacramento.
Uh-huh.
Ken wants to know if the horse guy win placed or showed. I didn't ask.
Well, he showed. Obviously, he shows
showed.
up on media all over the place. That's kind of a ridiculous question.
I am, for the lack of a better term, portly.
I wouldn't consider you portly.
Okay. I have a keg. Most people have a 6-pack. I have a keg.
You have a pony keg.
I have a pony keg.
You have a party ball.
But it was 100+ degrees.
Right.
And I was expected to walk outside in the 100+ degree heat on a regular basis.
And I've seen you do that before, and you instantly sweat.
Right. No, I look like if you take just like a chunk of ice and you dropped it, say, in Hades or somewhere
the river
in hell,
Styx.
Right. And the water would just gush off of it. That was me. And I joked that with the humidity in Massachusetts, I used to be 20 pounds lighter because you used to sweat all the time, and it was great. That's how I felt this week. Somebody said, "Oh, did you walk here today?" I said, "Yeah, I had to because I had to park God's creation on the other side." And they were like, "Oh, well, yeah, it must have been a hot walk over." I said, "Well, I like to consider myself like a sloth in this heat. And when I was passed by an old woman with a walker who gave me a look like I was holding her up, I knew it wasn't my best pace."
Well, you know what's funny is because I saw you this week, and you said, "Dude, watch this." And anytime you start a sentence like that, I know it's going to be good. And you literally,
I broke a limb that way once.
You went from you were standing in the doorway, and you took one step outside, and you go, "Dude, look," and your leg immediately started pouring sweat. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like everything that broke the prolongation of that threshold was instantly drenched in sweat, while the other side of you was completely dry to the touch. Not that I was touching you, except for that one time. But that's a different story.
If you want to know what I look like in the heat, picture a fat Pink Panther sweating profusely, and that's right about my skin color and my sweat. So, I like the heat, but.
And if you want to know what Sacco looks like in the heat, picture a cross between Chewbacca and Sasquatch coming out of the bath of water. And that's what Sacco looks like in the heat. Yeah, I'm serious. I've seen
Calm down, Chewie. That's your new nickname.
Yeah. Hey, just simmer down.
Come on, Chewie, relax. That's Sacco's new nickname is Chewie.
Save Chewie.
It. It's like you found gold or something.
Hey.
It's Chewie. Oh, no.
Hey, get back in the cage.
Get back in the cage, Sacco.
Yamule.
And make me coffee. From the cage. We have to position everything right around the cage for Sacco.
Look, Lois Lerner.
Yeah.
At it again.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So new information has surfaced that she warned other people at the IRS that she worked with that they have to be very careful about what they write in emails.
Well, yeah, because there's protocol that you're not allowed to do personal information.
No.
Curse.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that.
I'm pretty sure they have all that.
They might, but that's not what she was talking to because she was specifically worried about congressional inquiries.
Weird. Why would she worry about that if she was doing nothing illegal? For our new listeners, I ask a lot of rhetorical questions. Go on.
Was that to me or to them?
You.
Oh, I didn't know, because sometimes you talk rhetorical to me also.
What's sarcastic? Come on.
Which is weird, right? Because why would you want to be transparent? You work for the people, that is all of us. Okay, cage match. Who would you put Lois Lerner up against?
What are my options?
No, it's open.
It's open?
It's open, but another female, so you're limited to a female.
Janet Reno.
Okay, Janet Reno and Lois Lerner in a cage match and matchup.
Matchup.
I like it.
Listen, we keep talking about proof, and when we talk about Trey Gowdy's investigation, we've said it time and again, both sides should want the actual truth to come out, so there's no more questions left. When the emails disappeared, everybody, conservatives and some liberals actually turned around and went, all right, this is ridiculous. You can't tell me they just disappeared.
Right.
Now, when you have this evidence showing up of this email in which she's specifically telling people,
Be careful.
because it can be subpoenaed into a congressional hearing.
And she was talking about the instant messaging system, and she was worried about, well, can that be tracked? Is that something that's searchable? Is that so? She was asking IT folks about those things also.
See, yeah, immediately, yeah. I mean, that's like,
And this, I think, is during the time of the Inspector General's investigation, where she was kind of worried
Weird,
about
right?
this stuff, right?
well, you would think she'd have nothing to worry about. I mean, she didn't do anything wrong. That's why she pled the fifth, for goodness sakes.
But she didn't plead the fifth.
Oh, if you hear that alert, and I'm going to keep it going. That's the red alert for the Iron Dome. Every time the Iron Dome activates an interceptor missile over Israel, that's what that is. So if you hear that through the night, that'll come up later. But
So right now there's a missile attack.
right now there's a rocket attack, and the Iron Dome has been activated to track it.
Okay, so Israel's under attack right now at this very
As
second.
we speak.
As
on
we
the
speak.
air, yes.
And we'll keep folks updated on that, and we'll get into Israel a little bit later on. But I don't see what Israel the big look. Israel just needs to figure out a way to make it happen. You know, just make it, give them what they want.
It says this
You know.
White House.
Yeah.
Going back to
I was
Lois
being
Lerner-
sarcastic for our new folks
listeners.
also. Yeah.
Listen, when you're trying to cover your ass, pardon the expression,
I thought you were referring to the horse head guy again. Maybe it was like a donkey head instead of.
when you're trying to cover your rear before you're actually accused of anything specifically, because you know in your heart of hearts that you've done some wrongdoing, then that's a tell. If we were playing poker right now, that's a tell. That's a tell. The fifth, taking her fifth is a tell. The emails disappearing is a tell. And like we said before, we don't know how high this is going to go, and hopefully the evidence will tell us. There was the head of the IRS that visited the White House like 152 something times or whatever in that 6-month period. We can discuss that later. But
I think it's ironic that she
like a
knows
child.
she knows emails are searchable and all that, but she was asking about if the OCS conversations were also searchable, which is kind of like their instant messaging,
right, like their Yahoo Messenger or whatever.
Right. So I think that's interesting. So why is she worried about that?
An instant message. Does it just go away right away? Does it come right back? Blah, blah, blah. Again, that's a serious sign that something is severely wrong with her, what she did, and everybody knows it. What needs to happen now is this investigation needs to be expedited, and especially I think this is discovery enough to really start going into stuff, and not that they already haven't been, but to really expedite and maybe even expand. I would like to see who was on the other end of her instant messages. Was it, say, I don't know, a representative's office discussing a conservative PAC maybe down in Texas?
Right.
Who am I to tell? But I have the right to speculation based on the evidence that's given in front of me. And I would speculate that there may be some powerful people at the other end. I've also speculated, personally, I don't think I've said this on the air, that I think there's a reason that Jay Carney got out when he did.
By the way, do we have that audio? We were supposed to have audio of Jay Carney's retirement party.
Oh, you know what? What happened is we had the
Unconfirmed report, of
we
course.
had an unconfirmed report. I haven't been able to nail it down. I know that was my homework this week.
Okay.
But I was not able to nail down the retirement party or the going away party.
Okay.
Knighting ceremony. But I'll work on it.
We may be able to find it. The audio may be poor, though,
Right.
because it was kind of a surreptitious recording.
Right. Well, and no recordings were allowed, so it had to be done on the down low. If we could work on that, Sacco, if we could work on that, that'd be great. Let me know if you come up with something, hopefully after the first break.
Wait, okay. Wait, I'll undo the cage.
Go ahead, Sacco.
Okay. Cage is open. Go ahead, Sacco. Thank you, Sacco. I know exactly what you were saying
Good job,
there.
Chewy.
So Sacco said he'll get right on that.
But we still can't go to light speed, which I think is weird.
Well, you might want to turn your plane around. I'm running out of cord.
Hang on, holding pattern.
Good. Loops are perfect. So listen, we all know I would like to think we know what's going to come out of this. This is a huge.
Is she going to learn her lesson?
Oh man, we promised when this all dropped that we wouldn't make that joke. You promised.
It's not dropped yet, is it?
Most
Thank
of it
you
has.
very much.
Oh man.
You had a story, and this one actually upset you a lot, which I was surprised by how angry you were. Like, you had vein popping out of your forehead.
I did.
Which was, I hadn't seen that in a while.
So, in Georgia Public School, there was a group of middle school students who did not like the dress code that was being implemented at their school. Now, it's a public school. The dress code, it doesn't really seem all that harsh, but, you're 13. So, what did they do? They didn't vandalize anything. They didn't destroy anything. They decided to have a act of civil disobedience. They all decided that they were going to dress outside of the dress code on the same day. And these kids are 13-year-old, 14-year-old kids, to prove their point, to show their disdain with the dress code violation. In this country, we have our right to protest. I know it's a school, and I know we can have arguments about the legal right to protest in school, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that these kids who felt that they had to make a message and send it went about it the right way. Is, hey, you know what? We're going to wear a couple shirts that are outside the violation. Nobody's going to get hurt. We're not going to blow. We're not going to destroy anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that seem too outlandish to you?
It doesn't seem outlandish, but they're 13-year-old students. There's a dress code. They should abide by the dress code.
And I understand that. But like other things in this country, we don't like it. We protest.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it in a mature manner, if you will. I mean, that's a mature thing to do. Organize an act of civil disobedience. Don't do any other violations. Don't hurt anybody. Just show up, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to kick us out and suspend us, but our points across.
Okay.
So they did get suspended, which I'm okay with.
Okay.
Violation of their code of conduct, violation of their dress code.
Okay.
The principal called the students' acts terroristic threats.
Okay. So what were the threats? Did the students say we're going to come firebomb the school if we don't get our way?
No.
Did they say we were going to beat the crap out of everybody here severely unless we get our way?
No. So
did they say that we're going to open the borders and allow people to come in and terrorist groups to come in so that they can take over our country and infiltrate and bring about our economic downfall and maybe let terrorists in to do bad things?
They didn't really say any of that.
Well, what'd they say that was so horrible?
Nothing. That's the thing. There's a couple unsubstantiated reports, and it hasn't made any official documents. And the school's being really tight-lipped about all this. They don't want any conversation because this principal, her name is Rachel Holloway, screwed up, I think, in their opinion, by calling her students terrorists for organizing an act of civil disobedience.
Yeah, because 13-year-olds protesting a dress code violation is exactly like people that want to kill us because we're Westerners.
Something that in this country you could be indefinitely detained for. You don't necessarily get a charge or a trial. It has been reserved for people who have either murdered or attempted to murder.
But it's not anymore. I mean, it's not murder. It's not reserved for that anymore. And that started with the left starting to use the word extremist.
Right, on everything.
Right, to mischaracterize and bring discredit upon people or groups that they didn't like. They started using extremists, and now that's evolved to terrorists. And I have no idea what the ideology of this particular school is, but right or left, it doesn't matter. Now they're starting to do the same thing. They're calling a group of students, seemingly, and granted, we don't know what was said. Right. It is possible that some student in the group made some form of threat.
Hey, if you bother me, I'm going to kick your ass, or something like that.
Right.
Whatever.
In which case, it could be, now maybe terrorist threats is a statute used there. I know in California, because we thought it was odd on something and researched it, and California has a law that used to be called terrorist threats. Mm-hmm. They've since changed it a couple years ago to where it's now criminal threats. But if Georgia has a similar statute, is that what they're talking about? And I don't know, so
well, their PR
on the face, it seems like a ridiculous.
The school, who has
story.
A PR company,
Well,
responded. The students were suspended pending a tribunal last week.
Did it say tribunal?
Yes. for
Do we have
creating.
the Volga Boatman? Key it up. Key up the Volga Boatman. Hang on a second before we read the PR.
Come on, Chewy.
Okay. Go ahead.
The 11 Cowan Road Middle School students were suspended pending a
Now,
tribunal
hang on.
last
In your
week
comrade voice.
for creating conditions that some parents and administrators felt were unsafe. Because of their concerns, some of these students did not attend school all week as they were sentenced to re-education camp. That last part may have been left out. The 11 students were making comments on Facebook that implemented them in a number of activities that could be dangerous or disruptive to school. Still not necessarily illegal or amounting to terrorism, but disruptive at school. Law enforcement was also notified, and Spetsnaz was dispatched, school resource officers, and followed up with the investigation. The school district concurred with all the disciplinary actions set for the tribunal. Prior to this district-sanctioned disciplinary hearing, the 11 students had the opportunity to meet with Superintendent Dr. Curtis L. Johnson. Dr. Johnson offered the students an opportunity to acknowledge the issues and write the individual detailed essays that outline the consequences surrounding their planned activity.
I have a question.
or coup.
Did you say his name is Johnson? Like
Jones.
Like Dick?
No.
Like he's a big...
Dr. Curtis Jones.
Oh, I thought you said Johnson with your accent.
Sacco, continue. All 11 students chose to write essay and submit to Führer Jones by Monday, June 16th. Those essays will replace any further discipline. So, they did that was amazing. I couldn't do that again if I tried. Good job, Chewy. So they still got suspended, but then even though they stand by their policy, they turned around and said, "Well, if you write an essay, maybe we'll just get rid of the rest."
Well, how can they get rid of the rest? They made terrorist
It was
threats.
a tribunal.
Yeah,
They were held in a tribunal.
for terrorist threats. So what happened? What happens? Are we going to start doing that with our Gitmo detainees?
I hope so. Hey,
Right?
just write us.
Hey, just write an essay.
Just write us a quick story and all be forgotten. Are
Right.
you kidding me? It's so ridiculous right now. And this is an American school, folks. This isn't Georgia. I mean, it's not.
Whoa. Now I understand. Georgia, where putt-putt.
No, not
Yeah,
Georgia.
the country where.
No, not the country of Georgia.
Oh, yeah, then I'm confused again.
Down to Southeast America. Right there in the
Southeast
heartland of
America?
Americana. The reason
That's
we're
the best
laughing-
picture, by the way. That needs to get out somehow. Socko, I'm going to forward you a picture. This may need to get out into our Twitter.
Oh, man. The reason I'm laughing is in the middle of all that, and I was trying to keep my little Russian accent going, etc. I took a sip of my root beer, which decided to explode.
Whoa. Vanilla cream.
Which was decided to explode all over my desk. Listen, this is just, it's going way too far. You know, I understand that, yes, if you want to suspend these students for violation of the dress code, that's fine. If you wanted to suspend these students for disruption of the school, if they created a disruption outside...
For failure to conform.
Yes, for failure to conform. Listen, we're a nation of laws. I understand rules. I believe there should be consequences for your actions. But the consequences needs to fit the crime, which is our system of justice is based on that. And that's one of the values that's in our system of justice. So to accuse these children, who, by the way, this school file, unless they correct it and make it go away, which they need to, could follow them to college. Can you imagine if you're trying to get into a prestigious college and Joey, who wore a Nirvana shirt when he could only wear a button-up shirt that said nothing on it, and he was 13 years old, walks up to Harvard or whichever school, and they're like, "Yeah, sorry, see where you were accused of terrorist threats when you were 13 over an effing shirt? Are you kidding me?" This teaches our children that overreaction is completely acceptable and that you must be extreme with everything and you don't use common sense to deal with anything.
Right. I like the concept of school uniforms. And the reason I like the concept of school uniforms, and this is kind of an aside, I like it because there are students out there, there are parents out there that don't watch what their kids wear, and I understand it's an individual parent's responsibility to do so, but when you have fights in certain schools, particularly inner city schools, based upon colors and styles of clothing and this sort of thing, I can understand a school uniform being put into a place. So I understand the student's frustration with it. And I think it's okay that they spoke out about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with the school imposing discipline for failing to comply with their dress code. However, saying that it rises to terrorist threats, and again, absent any specific information, because nobody's saying what they said or did, but obviously it wasn't too serious if they got to write a stinking essay and get on with their lives.
Right.
Which I think, listen, if Mr. President, if you're listening, you may have something here with the Gitmo detainees. I'm just throwing it out there.
Let them all say how sorry they are.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay with dress codes. School uniforms, yeah, absolutely. If you're one of those school districts and it's a problem, I think each school district should be able to make their own decision on that.
Absolutely.
I look at it kind of like the same way I look at states' rights. And if your school district's having a problem with gang colors or profanity or people dressing inappropriately and you feel that's the best way to address it, mm-hmm. Okay.
It actually is fair. It is fair because, look, you have
I'm not always a four-letter word fan of fair.
I know. I'm not either. However, when you have some school districts that say, well, you can't wear an American flag, but you can wear a Mexican flag.
Right.
And
I'm not okay
you have
with
some
that.
school districts that say, well, you can't wear an NRA shirt.
I look at standard versus fair.
Right. But this way, look, it's across the board, it really takes away the school's ability to be, well, I don't like that NRA shirt, but I like this PETA shirt.
Right.
It takes that away. So as a conservative parent, I actually like dress code for that purpose.
Well, but I also see, and I understand what you're saying, and I know we're up against a break, but I'm also okay with the kid who wants to wear the PETA shirt because that's his right as an American.
As long as that other kid is allowed to wear an NRA shirt, and that's not the case.
But that's what the problem is. It's not what the kids are wearing; it's with how the school districts
exactly.
are
So a dress code stops that school's ability to engage in that type of one-sided behavior.
Or common sense above the school.
Or common
sense. We can work
sense.
either way.
Or both.
We're going to be back in 3 years on the South.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Radio.
Fact news. Fact news. Fact news. Fact news. Fact news. Fact news. Fact news.
Thank you, the Evan Miller Report. We borrowed your breaking news. This is coming over via Fox News. Breaking news, Marine held in Mexico, Andrew Tumaresi, is being held in custody in order to stay and remain in custody by the Mexican officials down there. So that just broke, just came over the news wire.
Wait a second. I have an unconfirmed report that the Texas National Guard is mobilizing for a rescue operation into Mexico. Unconfirmed.
Oh, if only. Can you imagine? Oh,
Yeah.
That would just be awesome.
What?
Oh, hey, guys. Yeah, we're just here to grab them real quick. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. No, put the baton down, Chief. This could get ugly for you. 800-545-5708. 800-545-5708 is our phone number.
Yeah, hey, sport. Well, you're just going to go ahead and let us walk out of here. Yeah, just pretend we're a cartel or something. I don't know, because bad stuff's going to happen
I know.
to you if
Can
you
we
don't.
just buy him back? Right? I could do a Kickstarter right now to buy him out of custody and just call it a day.
1,000 pesos.
Yeah. What's that? $15, $20?
Like $2, I think?
No, but, you know, there was a story this week on the Kickstarter campaign of a guy who wanted to make a $10 potato salad as a joke. He said, I need $10 to make a potato salad. He ended up raising like $40,000 plus. If we could figure out who we could pay off to get him back, then I bet you we could do a Kickstarter campaign and get well over $1 million in about 24 hours. Right? We might as well, because obviously this government's not doing any pressure.
But we don't know if they'll accept it.
Oh, they'll accept it. When it's delivered by the Texas National Guard, they'll accept it. Yeah, this is going to be the biggest bag drop you've ever seen. There's about 12,000 of us.
Right.
But it's
well, what's that?
ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, no, that has the cash in it. Yeah, that's the bay doors are going to open.
Yeah,
you know, it's a
anytime
B2. Yeah. No, the money's going to fall out, trust me. Oh, that thing? Yeah, it's connected to that. Well, I know there's a rocket engine that's firing and it's coming straight down at you.
That little guy? I wouldn't pay attention to that little guy. So let's go to our president's home state of Chicago, Illinois, city and state. Or that's the one that he uses. His home state's, that's yet to be determined.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, they've still had one of the most stringent gun laws in the country, despite the fact that they've been told not to. But, you know, they don't need to follow the law. Why should they? They're only in the city. But fortunately, that's been really making a difference. 4th of July.
Probably the safest city in America.
Yeah.
I would imagine. With all of the gun laws there, I would imagine that city would be really, really super duper safe.
Yeah. So, 82 people were shot over the 4th of July weekend.
Throughout the whole United States of America.
In
0 in Chicago because
Chicago.
it's so safe.
In Chicago.
Oh, just in Chicago.
Just in Chicago.
You're really blowing this whole liberal theory out of the water. You know that,
15
right?
of those shot were fatal. 15 people perished. You know, it's one of those things the Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy said. It's Groundhog Day in Chicago. You know what's happening so often when all the police superintendent can say is, oh, yeah, by the way, it's Groundhog Day. You know, they're talking about offenders that had bad history that were out on the street. You know, and he said there's too many illegal guns, or he said guns, but illegal guns. There's too many illegal guns coming into the city and too little punishment going out.
Basically, let me translate. Basically, what he said is there are too many guns in the city, period, and China, it's all your fault, because if you would never have invented gunpowder, we would not have this gun violence or any of these guns. We would have maybe bow and arrow violence. And no, that's not any kind of disparaging remark against Native Americans, so nobody be offended by that, please. Did I sum it up pretty well?
Yes.
So basically, he hates China.
Well, they're
right?
actually, yes, he despises China. They're actually starting to, and it's really starting to change. First of all, they had a 14-year-old kid that was shot and killed this weekend by Chicago PD, and I don't know if that's part of the overall number. After he pointed, he's 14 years old, illegal gun, 44 Magnum at a police officer, and he was shot and killed.
And he was how old?
14.
So why doesn't Chicago make a law to where you have to be older to possess a firearm?
Right.
Look, it's tragic, and I'm sure there's going to be outcry about why the big bad police officer decided to murder, gun down.
Even his mother said, you know what, he used to be a good kid, and last year I don't know what happened.
Okay, well, good. I mean, not good that happens, but good
but
that she acknowledges that.
But
because a 14-year-old with a gun can kill somebody just as easily as a 30-year-old with a gun.
Or a 92-year-old.
Right.
But the narrative's starting to change. The last couple of years it was all about illegal guns. Now they're starting to focus on the gangs, which I think is sort of a big issue.
Okay.
They're talking about how gang members are afraid to turn in their weapons or turn themselves in or do anything to try to go semi-legit because the amount of punishment that will be doled out by the gang leaders is so severe that it's worse than going to prison. It's worse than, getting away from it. They're facing death, a lot of these kids, and they get them when they're 10, 11, 12 to get into the gang. They jump them in, they start, have them dealing drugs and, mule and drugs or whatever you want to call it. And then when they're older and they're doing the robberies and all that stuff, that is when they, they get to the point that they can't get out. It's a no way out type of situation. So, it's good to see that they're actually starting to focus on what the true problem is, and I give them credit.
There was something that concerned me, though, in Gary McCarthy's statement. He said that he's going to go back, figure out what happened, and we're going to prevent it from happening again. Okay, I'm going to go back, figure out what happened, prevent it from happening again. Okay, but he was talking about the police department's method for handling the weekends being reviewed. I guess, look, I understand from a police administrative standpoint that he needs to figure out if his agency is handling things appropriately.
Yeah, he's the boss. He's gonna figure some things out.
In terms of patrols levels, whatever it is, staffing levels, whatever it is they have going on. But if that's solely his focus, clearly this is a deeper-rooted issue that the police department is not going to solve.
Well,
it is not the police department's job to solve this issue.
That statement was based on a statement by Rahm Emanuel, who said, I know a lot of people are asking where are the police and why weren't they doing their job, and that's a really good question to ask, and we'll answer that too. However, it goes beyond that. So
right, and so
when his boss kind of throws him under the bus like that, it forces him to acknowledge it, and I think that's what trumped that statement. I don't agree with everything.
I think he should have stood up and said, "Listen,
he won't,
the police department is operating the best we can within the limits set to us by your elected officials."
Right, I agree with you, but he won't because that's the boss, and he doesn't want to
have some testicular fortitude and stand up.
I agree. I will not argue that with you, but that's just not
because what kind of message does that send to the troops?
What does that send to the people?
Right. What's that send to? Well, what does that send to the people that work for him? If look, I don't care what organization it is, whether it's a police department or whether it's a private company. If you and I were to go out and basically throw our own people under the bus and say, oh, well, we have to figure out what we did wrong when our employees are doing everything that we allow them to do, how does that affect morale?
No,
how is that going to affect the service that the public is going to get when you have a bunch of the officers that have low morale and everything else now because of everything they're up against, and now they have a chief of police, their boss, their CEO, whatever it is, who now is not even backing them really.
Right. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think that he responded haphazardly but he was responding to something that the mayor put out there. The mayor never. We all know my thoughts on Rahm Emanuel. He's a jerk, and I think he's a loser. However, the mayor should not have thrown the police department.
It should not have.
Absolutely
Can the mayor by himself fire the chief of police, or does it take an act of the city council?
I don't know
as
what
a
their
whole?
city charter is on that.
I don't either.
know off the top of my head.
I don't either. And so I would listen. Me personally, I would rather, if I was that chief of police, I would rather go out with with my head held high, and say, hey, listen, we do everything we can. Our officers do an outstanding job with the resources that they're given. We don't have support of the city council or of this particular mayor, and we're going to continue to see if we can improve staffing levels or whatnot, and see what we can do within the confines of how we're allowed to operate. But my officers did nothing wrong this weekend. And the officer-involved shootings that happened this weekend are under investigation. And if there was any misdoing, we'll handle it. But if there's not, and there's no sign that there's not right now, we're going to go ahead and continue doing business as best we can.
Well, I don't disagree with that statement. I just think that Rahm Emanuel is in over his head. He only got elected because of his connection to the White House, and they use that. The man's not a leader. He worried more about getting that stupid CNN show on the air to make himself look reelectable. What was that, the 3-part miniseries on how to reelect Rahm Emanuel, essentially, and how hard he's working for the people. I was talking today, we were talking about Target not allowing people to open carry in the store and not allowing weapons in the store. And I said, if I was going to Target in Chicago, I'd be in a bad way. Because not only could I not possess a weapon in Chicago, I mean, unless I got my CCW or whatever, which they're trickling out from what I've heard, but I wouldn't even be able to bring it. Why would you go to a Target in Chicago?
You can't bring it into a Target?
No, Target came out, said they don't want weapons in the store. IKEA had a police chief off duty show up in his marked vehicle. They all knew him, small town, I forget where it was.
Uh-huh.
They all know who he is. He had a jacket over his weapon. He went into IKEA to go shopping. One of the people that recognized him stopped him, asked him if he was carrying his weapon. He said yes, and they asked him to go put it in the car and leave.
I wouldn't even answer that question.
I know.
I'd say that's none of your business.
But I think it was one of those situations when it started. It was like, hey, Bill, what's going on? Nothing. What are you doing? Hey, you have your gun on you? Well, yeah, of course, I'm a cop. Or whatever. Oh, yeah, that's great. You can't have it in the store. You have to leave. And like I told everyone on Twitter, that's their right as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I can respect that. It's a private property, private business. Same thing as
Costco
not selling the America book until all of a sudden it went number one on Amazon. It was selling like hotcakes.
And now is Costco selling it
again? All of a sudden Costco's like, whoa, maybe we are a little hasty on that. And now it's on the... But again, that's their business. But what does that tell you? If you're a Costco member and you severely disagree with that, maybe you want to go to Sam's Club or a competitor. It just depends on where you stand. But also, always keep in mind that these are private businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that we have to do as conservatives is respect the fact that private property and private businesses have the right to make those rules.
They absolutely do. But here's my question.
I don't agree with it.
I don't either. But here's my question. So what do you think would happen if a crazy person, if somebody who was bent on committing violence went into one of these locations where they know all you have to do is you look at the shooting in the theater, right?
Oh yeah.
And the theater he hit had a no gun policy, and
it
was publicized all over the place. It wasn't even the closest theater to his house, right? But that's where he went. So okay, hey, if that's what you want to do to your business, that's fine. What happens if a family member, God forbid, gets killed in a business where they don't allow weapons, and there was off-duty officers in there, or somebody that could have had a gun,
CCW, whatever,
and could have stopped that violence? Is that company going to be held liable?
I would think so. Because I think it's a fair argument to make that if you allowed weapons into the store,
lawfully possessed,
yes, of course. I apologize. It's so funny. I automatically assume it would be lawfully possessed because I follow the law, but
right.
Then the argument can be made that you could. I think if I'm
I would make that argument.
If I'm an attorney.
Right?
I would sit down and do the population of that state by the amount of CCWs in that state and start running the odds that a person in there could have been legally armed and perhaps defended the victim. I think that's a very fair argument to have.
In a big crime scene, everybody in that store is going to be interviewed. Right? So they're going to know who was in there.
Absolutely.
And so they will be able to identify who was who and if anybody would have been able to carry.
Can you just? I just can't even imagine being in that situation. Oh, I'm in IKEA. Some guy starts shooting. Throw the Flugendurgen at him. Like what? What defense do you have?
Right. Well,
quick! Somebody run to the cutlery section.
Stop! It's a no weapon store.
Right. Hey, pal, you take this mass shooting outside.
Right.
This is a no weapon zone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you didn't see the sign, but yeah, you're not allowed to kill people here. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go elsewhere. You're gonna have to go to a school. Oh, there are no killing zones there too.
Right.
Yeah. You're gonna have to go to. Yeah. Sorry,
Something?
dude. I don't know.
Something.
Somewhere
where they allow. Hey, why don't you go to Syria?
Somewhere where they allow
Mexico.
mass murders.
Gaza. Let's see. Where else could you go right now? Speaking of
Russia.
Speaking of the Middle East.
Nice segue.
Thank you very
much.
much.
No, I like it. It came in the box. I see you put it together, and it's standing there in the corner.
Can't wait to ride it.
It's
awesome.
nice.
It's so I get a little fanny pack so I can keep all my stuff on me.
And it says Varney in the front, which is great. That's the best part, a Varney fanny pack. I haven't seen that since you wore it last week. It's great.
Well, it goes to my members only jacket. So,
right. Your
so-
British Knights.
My Z Cavaricis. I got the big old buckles on them.
Dude, I can't believe you've pegged your pants.
Why wouldn't you believe
You're wearing Bugle Boys and you pegged your pants with your British Knights. It's the best. And your Esprit sweatshirt.
Esprit. Sadly, you know what's sad is the glasses from that whole era are starting to come back now. The
I know.
big, horrible white frames and all this other stuff.
I know. And Sacco brought in his boombox and his strip of linoleum. I don't know what he's going to do with
he's
it.
about to break it out.
While he's spinning.
I call this the Chewy Shuffle. We mentioned the Middle East.
No, you mentioned the Middle East.
I did, as a matter of fact. But we as a show did. I thought.
Yeah, no, pretty much we nailed it.
We, Goose.
Sorry, Goose.
So, God, it's so horrible what's going on over there right now. In the last 24 hours, there have been hundreds upon hundreds of rockets attack from Gaza over to Israel. As far inland as Tel Aviv, 70, 80 miles inland. These rockets used to only have a 20-mile, 15-mile range 10 years ago, and they're steadily increasing them. They're finding rockets from Syria and Iran that are being fired that aren't detonating, so they can identify them. So I started watching this, and obviously we're supporters of Israel, and I always follow what's going on over there because I do look at Israel as to our nation like a cousin or a brother. I think I look at them like family. And so the last few days when it really started ramping up and we're having all these, you had the 3 teen hikers, one of them who had American citizenship was killed in Israel, and they were Israeli boys. They were found dead, shot 10 times apiece. Then you had the young man that was Palestinian that was killed by allegedly 6 Israelis in retaliation for those 3 boys being killed. Israel acted promptly, arrested 6 individuals for it, essentially said this will not be tolerated. They will be charged with murder. But because of the retaliation, the Palestinians have started to really, really protest and increase the rhetoric and, use some harsh language, and then the rockets started. So yesterday, as I was watching the news and trying to follow them, I decided, I looked and I was able to find this app for my iPhone. And it's just the Israeli Code Red app. And the Code Red is what they use if there's a rocket. You know how we use Code Red? We use it for domestic terror and stuff like that. We were using the color-coded system for a long time. I don't know if we still are.
Yeah, the threat levels.
The threat levels. I don't even pay attention anymore. We're always under threat. They have one, it's called Code Red, and essentially when the Code Red activates, it means that there's a rocket coming in from Gaza or Hamas in Lebanon, depending on where they are. And that they needed to seek shelter. And it was happening so much, and I was watching Twitter feeds and everything. I said, I got to find this app. So I downloaded this app. And what it does, it just sends out a loud alarm, and it tells you essentially where the rocket is believed to be headed. It essentially says their Iron Dome rocket defense system has been activated. And that, if you're getting this and you're in the area that it says, you need to seek cover. The last one was sent
live while we were on the air.
Live, we were on the air. Yeah, 25 minutes ago in Beersheba. It doesn't tell you what happens or anything like that. It's just, but so I added this last night, and it has gone off. I've lost count, somewhere over like 115 times in the less than 24 hours. So this morning when I woke up, I had to silence it last night while I was trying to sleep. So this morning when I woke up, I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do, just to try to put myself in the mindset. Now I'm not being attacked, and nor do I claim to understand what it's like to be attacked by rockets and where I live or anything like that. But here's what I'm going to do. Every time it goes off, I'm going to stop whatever I'm doing for 1 minute to try to get my mindset and what it would be like to be, stop whatever it is you're doing and run for cover from a rocket attack.
That's what you should have done.
People already look at me weird.
Just arbitrarily, that's what you should have done. With your phone going off.
Can you imagine?
That's what you should have done.
I'm sure that would be like yelling fire in a theater, though. And I stopped for now. Mostly, you're talking 10 to 15 minutes by the time that the code red activates, so they find shelter, they get the all clear. Either the rockets land outside of town, or they don't hit anything, or whatever. The rocket's down.
Whatever.
Right. So you're looking at 15 minutes a day of these people living in pure terror
per event.
And it's not always the same area, but that's not the point.
Right.
So I did that today. I did that, and I stopped. I think I said to you on the phone 25 times, 25 times. And there was a couple of them where it was 6 or 7 events at the exact same time that they were coming in at. And that was just me listening to this little app, and I wasn't in harm's way, everything. And I was nerve-wracked. I was furious. I could not believe that if you were an Israeli, and we're going to talk about our government's response, but just having to deal after the break, but just having to deal with that on this day-to-day life, and it's really starting to increase over there, and it's going to get, I think, a lot worse before it gets better. And it's frightening to me to think if you have, and I'm a father, you're a father, there are parents out there all over the place. Think of your children in school or your children with you, and you're at the park, and think about how nerve-wracking and how scary that is. And it's not like a guy with a gun. You and I have this conversation. Guy with a gun, guy with a knife, whatever. If they're trying, I'll take my chances. I was a pretty good fighter when I was a kid, and I can do what I have to do. You can't stop as the average person walking with your kid a rocket attack. It just doesn't happen. Unless you're Chuck Norris.
Or Superman.
Or
Aquaman.
No, Aquaman can't do anything.
Are you kidding me? Aquaman's a stud. I used to have Aquaman underoos.
You still do.
I still do. You're right, I still do.
But I
want to play Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
So as we get into the next section after the break, I really want you to put yourself in I really want to put yourself in the mindset.
I was talking to someone else.
I know. Of our friends over in Israel and what they're having to go through. And when I see people who are not sympathetic to them, why it angers me so much. And there are people out there who are not sympathetic to them.
Well, and I want to make a note here. We have a couple minutes before break, and I do want to say this. Look, Hamas and the Palestinians, they've been targeting Israeli civilians.
Oh, yes.
They've been targeting civilian populations, and they have a stated goal of wiping Israel away. They want the destruction of the Jewish state, the destruction of the Jewish people, and Western civilization as well. So, which on a side note, if Hamas is working with the Palestinians, right, because they came out with that joint statement,
yes,
or whatever, if they're working together, why are we still giving U.S. aid to Palestine, to the Palestinian Authority? Well, no, hang on a second, because isn't it against the law? Wasn't there a law signed in '95 prohibiting? It makes it illegal to give U.S. funds to terrorist organizations, and Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. So if Hamas is working with the Palestinian group, are we not indirectly or even directly funding them? Maybe that's why the State Department came out today and said, well, we have no evidence that Hamas is directly related to... Is this administration violating the law by continuing to fund? And I submit that they are. But I want to make, I got a little off topic there. They're targeting civilian populations in Israel.
Yes.
And Israel has they've hit about 200 sites linked to certain groups.
Yeah.
Linked to the Hamas groups. That they've 118 concealed rocket launching sites.
That were within schools.
Right. 6 Hamas compounds, 10 militant command centers, weapons facilities, and some tunnels. 10 tunnels that were used to ferry supplies in from Egypt. And those numbers came from a Fox News report. So Israel is targeting strategic locations in order to stop the military offensive from Gaza, and they're just throwing rockets into civilian population centers.
Anyone, they don't care.
And we'll get after this break. We'll get to this administration's response to this, but it just shows you the restraint that Israel is having, and I know they're gearing up right now. They just activated 40,000 reservists to gear up for a ground operation, and we'll get into that when we get back.
All right, we're going to be back here in 3. It is Miller time. It's time for Jason Miller to give you the news here at the top of the hour for the Sack Kids Radio Show.
From the SHR Newsroom, I'm Jason Miller. The situation in Gaza is on a knife's edge, this according to UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who has said urging Israel and Palestinian militants to end hostilities. Mr. Ban warned that the region cannot afford another full-blown war. His comments come after Israel said Hamas had fired dozens of rockets at Israeli cities on Wednesday night following Israeli airstrikes. More than 60 Palestinians are reported to have died since Tuesday in Israeli airstrikes against militants. Gaza medical officials say half of the casualties were civilians, including women and children. 7 Palestinians were killed in an air raid on 2 houses near the southern city of Khan Younis early on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Israeli President Shimon Peres told CNN that a ground offensive might happen quite soon. The army has called up about 40,000 reservists. The French government has proposed a 6-month travel ban to stop citizens from traveling to Syria and Iraq to fight along Islamic militants. A new offensive of creating an individual terrorist enterprise designed to counter the threat of lone wolves will also be established. Government officials say that 2 or 3 young Muslims leave France every day to join Islamist groups abroad. There are fears that they will eventually pose a threat to France itself. The countries that signed up to the plan are Belgium, France, Germany, the UK, Spain, Italy, Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands. The UK has threatened to cancel passports of jihadists. UK courts have tried a number of people for the offense of preparing to carry out terrorist acts. The Netherlands has refused passports to at least 10 citizens suspected of planning to travel to Syria for jihad. 7 Dutch militants were also reported killed in Syria today. Germany believes it has 300 nationals fighting in Syria. The French bill would allow the authorities to impose 6-month travel bans on people suspected of planning to make the trip to the danger zone. All passengers flying into or out of the UK are being advised to ensure electronic and electrical devices in hand luggage are sufficiently charged to be switched on. Extra security checks came in some UK airports last week for flights to the US, but these will now be extended. The UK government says the checks apply to unspecified flights to and from the UK. It comes after an apparent terror threat that prompted the US to announce extra security checks last week. But the Department for Transport has now issued guidelines saying, in line with the U.S. advised passengers on some routes into and out of the UK may now be required to show the electronic devices in their hand luggage are powered up or not being allowed to bring the device onto the aircraft. Passengers Moving on to Germany tonight, German authorities are investigating a second spy case reportedly involving the United States. A week after the arrest of German intelligence employee cast a new shadow over relations between the two countries. Federal prosecutors said Wednesday that police raided properties in the Berlin area on initial suspicions of activity in an intelligence agency. They did not elaborate or specify what intelligence agency was involved, but said they had not made an arrest. We have investigations in 2 cases of suspected espionage, a very serious suspicion, government spokesperson Steven Silbert later told reporters in Berlin. He declined to provide further details, citing the ongoing investigations. The Daily Schwarztag reported, without naming sources, that the man being investigated at Germany's defense ministry and is suspected of spying for U.S. news website Spiegel Online reported, along without naming sources, that the man worked in a department dealing with international security policy, and it aroused the suspicion of Germany's military counterintelligence agency because of his close contacts to alleged U.S. spies. Moving on to some U.S. news now. President Obama said yesterday he was open to all of Governor Rick Perry's suggestions for addressing the wave of uncompromised migrants coming over the border from Mexico, urging Congress to approve his request for more funding so that those and other ideas can be put in place. The president said he was willing to consider dispatching National Guard troops to the border, as Perry suggested, but warned it would only be a temporary solution. He said that if Perry and Republicans want the problem to be fixed in the longer term, they should press Congress to move quickly to find his request. There's nothing the governor indicated that he'd like to see that I have a physiological objection to. Sorry about the tongue twister, ladies and gentlemen, but the president is known for those. The president said after meeting with Perry and other leaders. Obama said Perry raised 4 key areas of concern dealing with the number of Border Patrol agents, the positioning of those agents, the different policies of immigrants coming from Mexico versus Central America, and the functioning of the U.S. immigrant judicial system. Obama said if Congress passes emergency funding requests that he proposed, the government will have the resources to take some of the steps Perry recommended. He said the problem is it is fixable if lawmakers are interested in solving it, but that if the preference is for politics, it won't be solved. And finally, tonight, this story for our friend Mr. Clint, who's Mr. Sports fan over here. Her team didn't win, but she did. Photos of Belgian fan Alexis Despery cheering on her country during a World Cup match against Russia in Rio on June 22nd went viral after they were plastered around the world in newspapers and social media. The gorgeous blonde was decked out in red, black, and yellow face paint, the colors of Belgium's flag, wearing a matching hat with horns and waving pom-poms in the candidate photos. They apparently caught the attention of a major beauty brand, L'Oreal Professional. On Tuesday, Despery announced on her Facebook that she had signed a contract with the company. She said she was feeling excited. And should note, ladies and gentlemen, that only 17% of the world's female population is blonde, the majority of those blondes being in the United Kingdom. For more news every day, tune into the Evan Miller Report at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, right here on the SHR Media Networks. For the latest news all the time, go to shrmedia.com. Now back to the Sackheads Radio Show right here on the SHR Media Network. Back to you.
Thank you very, very much, Jason. If you haven't seen pictures of that young lady from Belgium and you enjoy beauty, then that might be something to check out. I'm just saying. No. I'm not going to go on any sort of a rant.
Hey, you know what? I think we actually got the audio, and we set it up a little bit last week, where we unconfirmed report that Jay Carney may have been present at his kind of retirement
Knighting
going away.
ceremony or...
Yeah, there was unconfirmed that maybe His Highness came and knighted him. Again, we're still trying to shore this up, but we have some audio, and we're unable to confirm if this is Jay Carney and President Obama interacting. But again, unconfirmed. We're trying to work on it. Sacco, you have the audio? Go ahead and cue it up. Okay, so here's where the president came in, and they were announcing it.
Presenting Majesty, the King.
That was his announcer.
That was his announcer announcing the arrival of the president. The red carpet.
Your Majesty.
And that's Carney, I
That's
think.
Jay Carney. Jay Carney.
In gratitude for your faithful service, I shall knight thee. Your most gracious Majesty. In the name of my most royal Majesty, I knight thee. Arise, sirloin of beef.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Arise, Earl of Cloves.
That's a good one, too.
Duke
Yeah.
of Brittingham.
Wow.
Arise,
Wow.
Baron of Munchausen.
Oh,
Arise, essence of myrrh, of magnesia, water of Thames.
smells good. Milk and magnesia.
You are too kind.
And then they all sang afterwards.
And then they
That
all
was-
sang afterwards, which
that
was weird. So that's, look, unconfirmed.
It's unconfirmed. We had to do a little research, but
Yeah.
we're pretty sure that was the knighting ceremony of Jay Carney.
And he did, in fact, have a lot of stamina getting up in front of all the folks up there all the time. Now, it was either Jay Carney
or
Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny might have been Warner Brothers.
Yeah, it might have been Warner Brothers. Arise, sirloin of beef, the sheriff of Nottingham. But
It's one of my favorites. It really is. I absolutely love Bugs Bunny. So we're gonna going back to Israel. Just since we've been on the air, like I said, we did have that one rocket attack, but since the sun's coming up there, and this is when the activity really starts. They're 8 hours ahead of us, so this is when Hamas really starts launching the rockets. We'll also find out soon if the IAF, the Israeli Air Force, made more strikes last night, because they made something like 120 or more on the night before that. But starting...
well, yeah, since it began on Tuesday, Israel has attacked more than 560 sites in Gaza.
Yeah. So that's just... it tells you that they're not...
screwing around.
They're not screwing around. So if you start at 12:13 a.m. local time on Thursday, 2 rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome. This is, 8 hours ago? The Israeli airstrikes were off and running. 12:30 a.m., the UN Security Council announced that they will meet at 10 a.m. on Thursday to discuss escalating tensions between Israel and Palestine. In the last 24 hours, there's been 82 rockets that hit Israel. An additional 21 were intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defense system. At one point in the evening, dozens of rockets were fired toward Israel within 1 hour. Israel is doing their best to try to avoid civilian population. They're dropping leaflets. They're actually making landline calls to people in certain buildings saying, hey, we know that they're housing rocket launch sites in that building. You need to get out because it's going to be leveled. So when you hear about, Israel's a monster and all they're doing is, striking these poor civilian populations, no, they're actually going above and beyond. And I tell everyone, sit in your yard and have your neighbor shoot at you. And how long will you sit there? Are you going to call him and be like, hey, just so you know, I'm about to come out of my house with my gun and shoot back? Or are you just going to do it?
Right. Are you going to tell everybody in your neighbor's house, hey, have all of your relatives get out because
Right.
I'm about to
Everyone but
I'm
you
about to
who's
protect
shooting at me.
myself.
Yeah. At 12:50 a.m. local time, the Prime Minister of Britain actually expressed his staunch support for Israel's right to defend itself in a phone call with Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's huge.
That is huge, and I'm glad to see Great Britain following Obama's lead on this because Israel's been such a great ally of ours. No, that's not the case.
30 minutes later, there was another code red in Beersheba. That's the one that we announced while we were on the air. And like I said, really shortly here, you're going to start seeing more and more code reds come in. So now Israel is, because they're doing this Operation Protective Edge, and that's what they're calling it. There was at 1:38 a.m. There were 2 more rockets intercepted by the Iron Dome over Beersheba. It's a separate one. 2:40 a.m. Code red in Ashkelon. There's more. 6:28. This is all coming in right now off Jerusalem Post. They're updating their live blog. 6:28 a.m. Code red rocket was heard over Shah and Gav Regional Council. So It's not ceasing, and these poor people have to live with it. Israel has called up just about all their reserves right now. They have a very reserve-heavy military, a very efficient and excellent military, but they're very reserve-heavy. I think it's 40,000 plus reservists have been called up. They're starting to line up tanks on the border with Gaza, as well as bulldozers. We're starting to get to the point that there may be a ground invasion. I know that their choice would be to be able to do airstrikes, as that's the safest way for the Israelis to do it. But they also recognize that this needs to come to an end, and that they really need to push and end this for once and for all.
They need to control Gaza.
Yes,
is what they need to do, and as long as they don't control Gaza, the militants are going to continue to occupy and launch attacks from there. I understand what they're doing in terms of why they're getting ready for a ground offensive, because they have to occupy and control that area. And it is Israel's area.
It is Israel's area.
Correct?
Yeah. I mean...
there is no independent state of Palestine.
Not on the other side of Gaza. I think outside of the Gaza Strip there is...
But that's what I'm talking about.
But where they are, where the airstrikes are going, where the rockets are coming
it's
from...
within Israel's area of control,
for the most
correct?
Part, yes.
So it's not even really an invasion. So I'm curious to see how... we know how the UN is going to handle this. But
they're going to wag their fingers at
Israel. And I'm curious to see how if Israel goes in with ground troops, I'm curious to see how this administration is going to handle it. Will they back them up?
Well, and you have the Prime Minister of Britain coming out staunch support of Israelis' right to defend themselves.
Of course.
Now, and Cameron's been kind of Cameron's kind of been an Obama in the sense that he hasn't taken a lot of hard stances on a lot of things. I don't dislike the man as a Prime Minister, but I don't think he's been definitive enough. I think we're used to Tony Blair, who is absolutely black and white. Hey, you know where I stand on this. You know where I stand on that. Great ally of ours. And Cameron's been some wishy-washy on some things. For him to come out this hard tone and use those specific, not even we support both of our friends in the region, and we hope that they can come to a resolve. No, we staunch support our right, Israel's right to defend itself. That is making a statement that is enormous.
It absolutely kills me that our president does not do the same. But particularly given the restraint that Israel is using in its strategic targeting of target locations within Gaza, and the carelessness with which these rockets are being lobbed into Israel, specifically targeting civilian populations.
Yes.
And how the United States is just standing by and not really even coming out and saying anything on the side of Israel. Look, didn't we have, in the not too distant past, did we not have a government that was bent on the destruction of Jews?
Yes. It was back...
and didn't the world swear this would never happen again?
Yes.
And yet, here we have another culture that is bent on the destruction of Jews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I the only one that thinks that is absolutely insane?
Well, no, I agree with you. It's totally insane. And I had a conversation with somebody who immediately, and almost like in Texas, they went to the children. What about the children? Listen, I do not like to see a child anywhere injured. I really don't. It breaks my heart. I'm the first person to say that, and I 100% am honest when I say that. However, parents of those children are the one who are responsible, because when you're living in somewhere and you're keeping your child there, and the militants are using you and your child as a shield to commit acts of terror, you are putting your child in harm's way. And now, if you were Palestinian and you're like, yeah, I'm out of here, and you ran to the Israeli border and you said, hey, you know what? They're going to kill me and my kid, get me out of here. The Israelis have in the past immediately allowed that child, they search him and all that stuff, bring him in and give him protection. They understand it. So the setup that there's this monster who are intentionally targeting, and there has been so many pictures sent out by the Palestinians,
of course,
that were false and has been proven false. The latest one I saw was what looked like a rescue worker holding a child that was bleeding, and the child was eating from a bottle and covered in blood. And somebody said, "Oh, this is the Israelis' work, and look at how these children are so used to this violence. Look at how calm that child is, even though it's bleeding from the head, it's just drinking its bottle." And somebody read the patch that was in Hebrew on the rescue worker and identified the exact town in Israel that rescue worker was from, and the fact that it was an Israeli baby being treated. And then everyone that was pushing that picture out as the atrocities from Israel immediately disappeared for a little bit. And so that's what happens. The Palestinians play their people as much as they think they play the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There are those governments who are ignorant to them. There are those governments who try to appease them, like you said, specifically ours, because we funnel money to them, and then they fund it to terrorist groups, I would guess. Or our money ends up in Iran, because that's where they're buying a lot of these rockets from, in Syria, other countries that we don't associate with. And we just stand by, again, and watch. And I'm not saying I want boots on the ground. I'm not saying that I think we should be going in as Americans, but I think we need to support our allies. And specifically in this case, Israel. In their time of need, folks, they're being shelled. Their citizens are being shelled. Their children, the same children that the Palestinians want to push up as being, victims, they're victims in Israel too with all this. And the Israelis exercise a ridiculous amount of restraint, but at some point it's going to be a tipping point. And we've said before in this show, Israel and Palestine, or Israel and Iran, if it happens, could be a huge gate that I don't know if we could close in that region.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that we could close that either. And we talked about this
a year and a half
ago, and it's unfolding weird, like we foretold. But the Hamas is weaker now than they were.
Yes.
When this ceasefire was declared or brokered by Egypt in 2012. At the time, Egypt was controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood, right? Arab Spring, it's wonderful, and they were sympathetic to Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case anymore. Egypt is now under it's not their elected officials, but essentially it's military control,
right?
And
which is actually the
closed,
best situation for them, because their military is the most responsible people in that country.
Right, and they've closed a lot of the tunnels and so forth that Hamas was using. Yep. And so Hamas is not as strong as it was in its position, again, because of the change in leadership in Egypt and whatnot. But here's the thing. A spokesman for Hamas came out and said, well, Israel is opposing this this unity government between, in Palestine, which is backed by Hamas. And well, of course they're going to oppose that. You're threatening to wipe them off the face of the earth. You're bent on the destruction of Israel. What is more important to them? Is it more important to them to destroy Israel and the Western culture, or is it more important to them to get their own a two-state solution? It's more important to them to destroy Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with our government not really standing with Israel on this, and it's very concerning to me that we give aid to Palestine when, if you have now this cooperation between Hamas and the Palestinian government, I guess, so to speak, this unity government, if we're still giving them money, are we not violating the law? I brought it up before. I think we are.
I think we are as well.
So how do you get around that? You get around that by having your spokesperson from state come out and say, well, there is no concrete evidence that Hamas is involved with the government there, which is, they said essentially today, correct?
Yes. God, it's so sad.
Yet you have Abu Obida, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, nor do I care, come out, and he's a spokesman for Hamas's military, come out and say, well, why is Israel cracking down on the West Bank, and they need to stop their opposition to a Palestinian unity government that is backed by Hamas? Oh, but there's no connection.
Listen, I was listening to a woman on the phone who was a spokesperson for Hamas, a female, and she was on the phone with an Israeli news station, and the Israeli news reporter asked a legit question. She turned around and said, when is Hamas and the people of Palestine going to stop supporting Hamas and their indiscriminate firing of rockets upon our Israel? And this woman immediately went off. You're high and mighty. You're in the studio. You don't know what's going on out here, this, that, and the other thing. So she said, so you support it. If you're not going to denounce it, you're supporting it. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to take a stand. I'm asking you to take a stand. And she wouldn't say it. She kept trying to spin it into essentially you're the evil Zionist. And they eventually just hung up on her. She's a spokesperson for the PLO of Palestine. So it really shows you how when they're backed with the truth into a corner, they will say anything and everything to remain the victim and to act like a responsible government. When the fact is the people who run Palestine, Hamas and Hezbollah to the north, are terrorists. And the terrorists who there is a chance that some of our money's getting into, but they're also terrorists that Iran is supporting. A lot of these missiles are Iranian and Syrian. They don't just show up, folks. They get shipped for a reason. There's a reason they had the blockades a couple years ago that everyone went absolutely insane with it because the Israelis were stopping the blockades. But this is what happens when they don't stop the blockades. You're looking at 300 rockets that land on cities. And there are the Russians have money that go to Hamas and weapons that go and tools. I believe Iraq has actually provided support at one time. It goes much deeper to this, and that's why I was saying this could be a gate that we can't close, because if Israel is forced to go into Gaza and go into Palestine, what's the next? Who makes that next move? Is it Iran coming to Palestine's defense? Does Hamas go crazy to the north? Lebanon is always a wild card because you never know who's really running that government. Is Syria going to turn around and they're right there? You really, really, really have a dangerous situation. And the fact that mainstream media has been so ignorant to this, they have not touched this. Other than a couple pictures of an explosion here and there, a few words here and there. One of Obama's lackeys spoke, and essentially a couple days ago at a conference in Israel, and essentially told the Israeli people to act with restraint in the government. You need to act with restraint. Yeah, how many times... let me see what you're saying. I either keep taking it on the chin, despite the damage to me, in case you're wondering, that's another red alert from Israel right now. Rockets attack over Ofakim. So, but you're going to tell me to keep taking it on the chin?
Well, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon did come out and condemn the multiple rocket attacks on Israel from Gaza.
Well, and I don't necessarily dislike Ban Ki-moon. And thank you, Lady Michelle, who joined us in the chat room this evening, and she's a good East Coast gal. She and I are from close to the same area, so she was in our chat room this evening. Thank you to her. Good. More people need to come out and condemn it. The world as a whole, all of us who are responsible leaders in our countries, need to come out and condemn these attacks. The money needs to stop to Palestine and Gaza. We need to cut them off until they realize that they cannot be the bullies.
They won't realize it. I mean, this is they've been fighting for how long? They're not going to realize it, so we just need to stop funding them.
Right. Well, and maybe Israel needs...
Why are we funding them? It's not stabilizing the region.
Maybe Israel needs to be allowed to prove a point.
The only way to stabilize that region is to have a single-state Israeli solution. That's the only way to keep that situation stable. Anytime Israel has given up any part of their territory or whatnot, what's happened? These militant groups have used it as a jumping off point to stage further attacks against them. They don't care about having their own piece of land, so to speak. What they want is to wipe Israel away. They want to do away with Israel and the Jews.
Did you watch Three Stooges growing up?
Yeah.
Do you ever see the one where Mo gets installed as the leader of a country that was supposed to be like Nazi Germany?
Yeah. Yes.
And they're saying, peace, peace, we want peace. Yes, we want the peace of this country,
Yes.
the peace of that country. That's exactly what this is.
It
Veronica for Morons. That was the name of it.
But they don't even just want that. They want Israel gone.
Right. They want them off the planet.
They want the Jewish race
Right.
gone.
They think they should just be eliminated or at least removed from the Middle East.
No, they want them gone
No,
because
no.
they're going to set their eyes on us next.
Well, that'll never happen.
Well, no, it is. I mean, that's what they want.
Right, that's what they want.
And
but it
that's
won't
their goal.
happen.
But what I'm saying is that we say that now, but we are significantly weaker than we were.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is true.
But so the fighting's not going to stop. You can condemn it all you want. I think if Israel takes action and just look, they go fight, and they have to actually root out the problem. I don't think. I mean, look, peace talks work maybe for a short amount of time, maybe, but something always sparks it back up, and there's just it's a cultural thing over there. I don't think I don't think it will ever stop, even if you broker the peace. And everybody wants it to stop, and everybody talks about a two-state solution as the only way to stabilize the region. I don't think that's the case.
I agree. I mean, I would like it to stop. Any normal person that says they wouldn't want it to stop.
Look, I want it to stop, but I think Israel is absolutely doing the right thing. They have a right to defend themselves and their people. I think the way that they're going about doing it and their potential buildup for a potential land invasion may be the best way to do it. And I think the United States should come to their aid. And if they need military assistance, in this case, we may have to give military assistance in order to protect an entire race of people from being eliminated in the planet. These new rockets that are being launched from Gaza have the ability to reach approximately half of the population of Israel now, because they're making more and more advances. That's a huge.
I hope the chemical weapons ISIS
deal.
just got in Iraq doesn't end up in Gaza.
And that's what I'm talking about. Well, I'm not talking about just that, but that is certainly a component of what I'm talking about. And that some bullies, the only thing they understand is a punch in the mouth.
Yep, I agree.
And I'm not.
I think that's going to be the case.
And I think that's going to be the case. I don't condone violence, but sometimes the best defense is a good offense. And with as much restraint as Israel has shown, I think potentially Hamas needs to be punched in the mouth in this case.
Yeah, just ask Patton what he thinks about a good offense. We're up against a break. 800-545-5708 is the phone number here on the SHR Media Studios, live back in 3.
Radio. Pack news. Pack news. Radio. Pack news. Pack news. Radio.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Kids Radio.
Eight 800-545-5708 is the phone number here at the SHR Media Studios. We are live this evening, streaming you over shrmedia.com as well as Pundit Press. Make sure you check out all of our great talent here at SHR Media, from our writers, Dr. Arrington, Rosiedale, Rooster, there's some other guy that writes too. I forget his name. It's
not me.
Steve or something like that. Might be Sean. Make sure you check out all of our shows, the Exceptional Conservative Show, and of course the Evan Miller Report, as well as the Rooster Crows at Night on Saturday, and a couple more other ones coming as well. I do want to talk about Texas in a minute. I want to close out Israel real quick, though. We're supposed to be an ally to Israel, and we're supposed to be a friend, and we swore that we'd be a friend to them. We've taken care of them. They've taken care of us. We've always had a brethren, a relationship with them, much like Great Britain, where it kind of supersedes a lot of what else is going on in the world. And for our president to stand back and do nothing really shows you who he is and what he's about. And I'm going to talk about Texas in a minute and what's going on our borders, but think about it like the guy who keeps saying he's a really good friend of yours, but every time you actually need him for something, he's never there. And he always makes an excuse, or he doesn't answer the phone, or it doesn't matter what it's for.
Are you talking about Clint?
No.
Okay.
By the way, Clint has had a pass for the rest of the show. He does have a late flight to catch this evening, so he is departed. He sends his well wishes and he apologizes, but his flight got changed and he had to kind of rush out. So if you don't hear him, it's not because Chewie struck back and.
Well, to be honest, I ran out of cord.
Yeah. Yeah. There's only so many lengths of 50-foot radio cord you can use, or whatever cord this is.
Wi-Fi. I don't know what
Dude, I told you when you set it all up. So, when you think of Israel, when you think of our relationship with them, think about what this administration is doing right now. And it shows you the rest of their foreign policy and how horrible and deplorable it is. Once again, says very little about it. His administration says very little about it. They don't support Israel the way they should, and it's really upsetting and depressing. And it's something that he needs to be called out on. And I hope somebody who gets to sit in the next press conference with him calls him out on it, and has the stones to do it. And really, like Ken said, we are the mainstream media. We are the ones who are going to talk about it because nobody else is. Israel's under attack so much as of right now, more so than what they're usually under attack. They usually get a rocket or two a week. They're under almost a strict attack right now that they haven't seen in a long time, and it's escalating. And your quote-unquote mainstream media, the big five or six, is ignoring it. And the only ones who actually are saying anything is Al Jazeera, and they're doing it from the point where the Palestinians are the victims. So that goes to show you how much things are wrong in this country right now. Moving on, a little bit of good news. Ray Nagin, the former mayor of New Orleans, Louisiana, he was the mayor during the time that Katrina hit. It was a horrible tragedy. Horrible tragedy. which we're going to talk about Obama's Katrina moment when we talk about Texas. But you have this horrendous incident that happened, this hurricane that blew in a city that just wasn't prepared. And then all this federal money flooded in to try to help the recovery and get people back on their feet and get life going again. And old Ray, who at the time loved the press, was always talking to the press, did everything he could to get his face out there after the fact during the recovery. He was a Democratic sweetheart. There were people saying that he was going to go places politically. He was going to run for this and get elected senator. Someday he may, who knows where he may end up. He could go as high as the president. This is before anyone had heard about President Obama. He was a big Democratic sweetheart, except for the fact that he was laundering money and taking bribes with the federal FEMA money that was supposed to be going towards victims.
I have a lot of words to say about that.
Heartless is a good one. He's got 10 years. He was convicted, just 10. That's all the.
Just 10.
He was convicted federally, and then the sentence was handed down today. So 10 years. Sacco is going to be joining me for the last 30 minutes for the show, especially for this part because Sacco takes some umbrage with what he did.
Here, let me tell you why. Okay, California, we have. Well, it seems like we have a lot of bums. I just see a lot of them over places. One day, I was at Chipotle. I was walking out.
Transients, you mean? Homeless people.
Okay, call them what you may. No, but seriously, I walked out, and there was this elderly lady, and she was asking for money, and, after being around so many transients asking for money, you kind of get hardened. My heart's hardened towards them, like, hey, I only have my card. Sorry.
Yeah, cold-hearted a little bit.
And she's like, that's okay. I just came up here from Katrina about 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, no. This is the first time I've heard that. And then she was telling me how bad it was up there. Because, it's been 3 years since the last I've heard about it. And, I remember the news about it. It was pretty much there for a couple months.
Long time. The recovery is still ongoing to this day. I mean, there's still parts that need to be fixed and repaired.
So I felt really bad. I heard the story out, and I went into my car, found some change, and gave it to her. But after hearing that story, I was like, okay, I can't be so hard on these people. Like, you never know.
There was many people who were quote unquote victims that took advantage of the system. They got those federal credit cards to help recover. I know I was living in Massachusetts at the time. They shipped a bunch of people who lived in New Orleans up to the military base down on the Cape. And I'm talking a couple hundred, 300-400 in a small town. Otherwise, that wasn't prepared for it. Who took those credit cards and all the money that the feds were giving them to recover, and they went out and they were spending them on booze and all this other stuff. So there was a lot of misuse, and I think we've, as a country, I hope that we learned a lot about how to recover from a situation like that doesn't involve just throwing money at it. We're ill prepared, but it's a little bit different. Listen, when you just lost your home and you just lost all your worldly goods, and I think they all should have been evacuated. I think that they should have left, and the ones that chose to stay, sadly, kind of put it on themselves. And I'm not trying to take away from their loss, but I'm one of those people that, you live in a place that's underwater. It's up against the ocean. It's literally underwater. It's under the water line. You have a Category 5 hurricane coming in. You're told to evacuate. You're told to get out of the city. They did have buses there that people chose not to do. There was a lot of, I'm going to ride out the storm.
Right. There was a lot of, the Red Cross was there helping people out.
Right.
Hey, let's go.
Yep, absolutely.
Buses out. Bush did a lot.
And there was failures. Don't get me wrong. He was not perfect.
Well.
But and his administration was not perfect. There were some failures, but you're always going to have a failure on a catastrophe of that magnitude. You look at 9/11, there were failures.
Right.
From the time the towers collapsed during the recovery. There's always going to be some failures here and there.
But the fact is that they tried as much as they could.
Yes. And you had celebrities saying that, the recovery was taking so long because George Bush hated black people, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not kidding. That was said on national...
I'm not surprised. Of course, why not?
But when the mayor of the city, who is stricken and is given all this federal money, and you find out that he's taking bribes for recovery contracts, He's taken some of the FEMA money. He's taken some money here and there. And he's doing it illegally for himself or his own causes. That is the biggest kick to the chops.
It struck me when you told me earlier today that that's what he was doing. I was just like,
you were angry.
You have to have no heart to do that to these people,
So-
regardless if you like them or not.
Mhm.
They're humans, and they're
And they're Americans.
They're Americans,
And they're your constituents. They voted you into office to
Right.
take care of them. And that's how you treat it. After you question the administration, after you question FEMA, after you question the recovery, and you go out there, you look like just like angelic. And then this happens. I can't wait. There was somebody who joked earlier, and I said I was going to start a poll that says pick Ray Nagin's prison buddy. And I hope the dude's huge. I do. So,
Hey, have you met Bubba?
yeah.
No. Well, good. You'll get to know him real good.
This is your cellmate Chewbacca. Finally, folks, I want to talk a little bit about Texas and what's going on at the border. I have two clips that we're going to play. The first one is going to be the president talking about it, and then the second one's from Fox News and Cavuto, and it's actually a two-part clip, and I'm going to let both play through and explain it. But, Sacco, play the first one, the president talking about how the Republicans really need to do more, and the border would have been solved already.
All right.
Last week, I sent a letter to Congress asking them to increase penalties on smugglers and to give us flexibility to move migrants through the system faster. Yesterday, I asked Congress to fund these efforts. About half of the resources would go to border security, enforcement, and expedited removal of people who don't qualify for a humanitarian claim. About half would go to make sure we're treating children humanely. We'd also make investments to further tackle the root problems in Central America. So, right now, Congress has the capacity to work with us, work with state officials, local officials, and faith-based groups and non-for-profits who are helping to care for these kids. Congress has the capacity to work with all parties concerned to directly address this situation. They've said they want to see a solution. The supplemental offers them the capacity to vote immediately to get it done. Of course, in the long run, the best way to truly address this problem is for the House of Representatives to pass legislation fixing our broken immigration system, which, by the way, would include funding for additional thousands of Border Patrol agents, something that everybody down here that I've talked to indicates is a priority. But what I emphasized to the governor was the problem here is not a major disagreement around the actions that could be helpful in dealing with the problem. The challenge is Congress prepared to act, to put the resources in place to get...
Well, that's not the challenge, Mr. President. The challenge is when it's another rocket attack over Israel. So if you listen to us, Moetza, Azoret, Shah Hanagev.
Can't pronounce it?
No, that's exactly how it's pronounced, I believe. There's a potential rocket coming into you there in Israel. The problem is, Mr. President, quite honestly, is a couple years ago you stopped enforcing immigration. You just said you were going to stop enforcing it. You just chose not to do immigration. You're not going to deport people. You're not going to hold people accountable. You opened up the floodgates into our nation. And word spreads, even though they may, word of mouth goes fast. And these people are going to flood the borders because they know they're not going to get kicked out. And everyone's making this about the children on the border. Oh, the poor children on the border, the poor children. Yeah, same thing I said about Hamas like 30 minutes ago. I understand that they're children. I feel sorry for them, but their parents put them in that situation. Their parents need to be held responsible. But on top of the children that are coming over the border, and we're talking by the thousands, folks, you have MS-13 gang members. MS-13 is one of the most violent gangs on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And they hail from Central America, Ecuador, Guatemala, that whole area. MS-13 gang members are coming over in droves. And they've been writing threats on walls. They've been threatening law enforcement while they're there. They've been essentially saying that when they make it into the country, any cop that tries to put them back, they're going to kill them. This is what's being allowed. So we can talk about the idea you had yesterday in the middle of the problem. We can talk about, yeah, you know what, we should have done immigration reform a long time ago. And by immigration reform, I mean we should have closed the border. We should have stopped the flow of illegals. We should have got word out that if you come in here, we're going to send you home. This $4-point-something billion that you're asking for to take care of these folks a couple days ago, it's cheaper to put them on a plane and send them home overall. There's a lot of things that you could have done differently as the president. You love executive action. Get an executive action. You have the ability to get more Border Patrol agents down there. You have the ability to work with the state and maybe assist in mobilizing National Guard to protect the border. You failed. This is another policy that you failed at. You created this problem. This was a man-made problem that you created. Now take responsibility. Don't go throwing it over to the House of Representatives. Don't throw it to Congress. Yeah, you know what? Congress needs to get off their ass and do something. But it's not kowtow to you and your stupid immigration policies that all you're going to do is invite more people in. I agree we need to streamline immigration. I agree that we should have some sort of immigration holder that you pay us $10,000, and then when everything clears and everything, you can get it back. If it doesn't clear, if you're an illegal, if you're a criminal, if we can't find you, if your prints don't match, whatever, we keep that money. Make it hurt. And if you come across with a drug cartel, I wrote a thing last week on shrmedia.com on how to deal with drug cartels and Mexicos and everything. If you came over with them or there's money going to them somehow, you don't get welcome in. You get sent back. We'll give you a gallon of water and send you right back through the desert.
So here's the problem. Here's the way I see it. And don't look at me like I know something. But if I was in Mexico and I wanted to cross the border, the first thing I consider is, do I fear the Americans?
Do I fear getting caught?
Do I fear getting caught? What happens if I get caught? Do I get a slap on the wrist and sent back? Okay, well, I'll try 7 times till I make it through. We need to put the fear back on the Border Patrol, saying that if you get caught, there will be severe punishment.
Yes.
And figure out what that severe punishment is. I have my own opinions about it. I'm not going to go into detail. But if they don't fear us, the problem just gets worse. Doesn't matter what you do here in the States. Doesn't matter, if you get caught, we're going to put you in jail for, or we're just going to send you back. You got to do something that's going to say, hey, if you get caught, we're going to put you on the other end of the island, and good luck crossing,
We're going to drop you off at the bottom of Chile, and good luck getting back. No, and, somebody brought up a really good point is the countries that they're coming from, we should itemize everything that we're giving to those people and a cost and bill that country. So if they're from Ecuador and we have 20, say...
How do you build a country? I mean,
you send them a bill and demand payment, take them to court. Figure it out. But it sends a message. You have to start sending a message. And you do it in a couple different ways. I agree that we should just build a fence. I'm one of the biggest believers about that. You build the fence.
What happens if, regardless of the fence, what happens if you bill Ecuador and Ecuador's like, okay, I'm not going to pay it. I don't care. Then what?
Then you hurt their credit.
And
then they have international bank loans, etc. You can go to a whole bunch of different legal routes with that. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to send a message, like you said, and that's part of the message. You go a couple different routes with that. We only have a few minutes left.
I don't see why we don't just put the landmines on the ground and say, hey, good luck crossing.
No. I understand what you're saying.
Scare tactics.
Right. You blow one up and the word will get out quick. And here's why, and this is when I do think of the children, is they're going to send their kids across first. There a lot of those people
they'll use them as shields.
Yeah, a lot of the coyotes, which is why I think we need to treat Mexico like a state supporter of terrorism. That's one of the reasons, is that they use their children as a weapon, or in this case, an implement or a device to get them into the country and get sympathy and take all of our stuff.
We need to talk to China. Get the Great Wall of China going here.
See if we can borrow a portion of it. Play number 2. It's a 2-part clip from Fox and the Neil Cavuto Show.
Are you not at all concerned about the optics? The president can fly to Texas to raise political money, but he can't go see this urgent humanitarian situation?
We're not worried about those optics, George, and that's simply because the president is very aware of the situation that exists on the southwest border.
Very aware, so he doesn't need to see the border for himself. That isn't exactly flying with Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar from the fine state of Texas. He says the president is one step behind on this mess. The congressman now joins me on the phone. So, Congressman, by that I take it you mean he should be seeing the border?
Well, I hope this doesn't become President Obama's Katrina's moment. I'm sure that President Bush thought the same thing, that he could just look at everything from up in the sky, and that he owned it for a long time. So I hope this doesn't become the Katrina moment for President Obama, saying that he doesn't need to come to the border. He should come down. Not only Governor Perry has asked him to come down, but I know my colleagues, Filemon Vela and Ruben Hinojosa, invited him to come down, and I certainly would ask him to come in, even though I still think he's still one step behind, but he should come down to the border to see exactly what's happening. Well, again, a long time ago, months ago, I sent a letter giving them my suggestions on how we ought to set up a one-stop center where we actually have immigration judges down there. We have the detentions. We do the removals.
And he's doing his. I'm not disagreeing with some of the things that he's saying, but it's really telling when a Democratic congressman from Texas is saying the president, who's not 5 minutes ago was talking about us how you heard the clip about how on top of it he is and how ahead of the game he is, and it's the Republicans' fault, and it's Congress's fault. Here's a Democratic congressman who says he's behind the 8 ball on this. He's a step behind. He needs to come down and see it. And we talked about Katrina in the Katrina moment, and that was President Bush looking out the window onto Katrina. He didn't land and actually view it himself. And one of the reasons that was said, and to this day is said, that he didn't land is because he didn't want to take away all the resources that were being spent on the recovery to protect him, because there's certain protocols in effect. We can argue if that was the reason or not, but that's why he said it. But this president was already in Texas. This president was already going to Texas. And he had the opportunity. It was a planned thing. He had the opportunity to go to the border and see this crisis. And again, he chose not to.
You know what? You think about it as a president. You have this problem. You know about this problem, and you choose not to take care of it. This is America.
Mhm.
You are the leader of
The free world.
Right. So you look at a problem. You're like, I'll get to it.
That's how I do it, but I'm not the best leader. And then he runs off to Colorado, and we talked about horse mask and all that stuff. And here's the amazing part: is our southern border right now is one of the biggest crises our domestic policy is facing. It is a humongous crisis. People may not think so, but the amount of people that are coming over the border right now is such an influx, and people want to treat them and call them refugees and all this other stuff. They're immigrants. Illegal, criminal aliens, as we call them on the show, criminal aliens. And they're flooding our country. And we aren't dealing with it how we should. And he is on a fundraising trip, $35,000, $40,000 a plate dinners for people to sit and eat dinner with them and all this other stuff, to raise election money for the Democrats. On our dime, by the way. You and I pay for Air Force One when he goes on these little trips. It doesn't matter why he goes on it. We're still paying for it. The amount of money, millions of dollars, and we talk about the lavish vacations this administration's taken, all the money that they've spent. This is another one. And the money that he spent doing this little fundraiser trip, between the gas for the plane and all this other stuff, and these dinners so people try to get close to him and shake his hand for $45,000, $30,000 a plate, whatever it was. If you put all that money in, guest on Ken McClinton's show earlier, another rocket attack ongoing right now in Israel towards Tel Aviv is where they're reporting. Tel Aviv is very far inland, or very far away from Gaza, so it's another one for Tel Aviv just coming over right now. But if you turn around and you spend all that money and maybe you put it towards this immigration problem, we could pay to get all these people to go back home and deal with it from there. I'm not saying we have all the solutions, but you know what? This president who loves to point his fingers, it's everybody else's fault all the time, no matter what, has yet to take responsibility for anything. As much as he says the buck stops here and I'm in charge and everything goes through me and I'm the king and blah, 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 he's not doing it. He won't even go see the damn crisis when he has the opportunity.
It's sad. So we got 3 minutes left or so, but I feel sad for the next president. Like, if I was going to run, I probably would wait until Not this next election, but the one after. To see what's going on.
If you're a real candidate with real standards, I don't feel bad for you. Because first of all, if people in this country are finally paying attention, and I think they are, now that the Democrats are even starting to bite back, the Democrats are even starting to bite back at this president. He used to be the Teflon president, more so than Clinton, and they're starting to bite back. If you are a candidate of good, sound morals and values, you have good ideas, you're not afraid to take blame for something, and you're honest, I think if you come in with a plan in 2 years or 3 years, you could actually entrench yourself in history as the person who turned it all around. I'm not saying it's going to be easy.
You can. It is going to
But
be
if you have a really good approach, that's just the way to go.
Well, good luck.
I'm trying to read out on this, and it's if you go to the App Store on Apple, it's called Red Alert Israel. If you just search Red Alert, you can get this. And there's actually people...
Conservative media.
Oops, sorry.
Wow. Okay.
Who makes the app?
I'm trying to read it right now. I lost it, but it's if you just search Red Alert :Israel, it'll pop right up. And you can even go through there. People allegedly in Israel who are commenting and actually telling you what happened with it. I was in Israel. Was it intercepted? Unknown, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really good app to have. So this crisis border. I know we're out of time. This president needs to stop blaming other people and really blame him, because right now this is his doing. And like the congressman, the Democratic congressman from Texas said, he's one step behind, and that tells you how ignorant he is to the situations in this country. Hey, listen, folks, it's been a great 2 hours. I truly appreciate you joining us here on SHRmedia.com on the Sackheads Radio Show. I am Sackhead Sean for Sackhead Clint and Chewbacca. Give us a yell. The weakest Chewbacca ever. Join us every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East.
I haven't seen Star Wars. Would you be upset?
Oh, you and I are fighting after this show. Thank you so much to Jason Miller, the Evan Miller Report. You can check him out on SHRmedia.com Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific. He gives us the news. You'll know it's Miller time right then. We will talk to you next week. Check me out tomorrow here at noon on the Pacific Coast as I do the Mannerisms Show. We talk about all stuff man. Sacco, play us out.
You gotta get me out of the cage more often.
There are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack you.